So I'll just begin the retreat, this group practice session with the preliminary homage to the Buddha, Dhamma and the Sangha. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhang dhammang sanghang namasami. So welcome to our group retreat, beginning of our retreat period with some sense of gathering together. And so gathering together all our intentions and potentials means a lot of relinquishment of other things we could be doing, conceiving of, operating under, just trying to really collect our energies and our intentions and our attention, collect it, let it gather, let it condense into something that's one-pointed, one purpose and undistracted. And so a lot of putting aside, and that takes time actually. Things don't just drop off. There's a careful reflecting, relinquishing, maybe not now, that sort of settling in, rather like a bird, chitta, like a bird that's been running around doing this and that, and now it sees a tree and it's kind of hovering over where's the place to land, and that can take a little time. So it will be different for different, each of us can have a different measure of that in these early days, but the aim of this session is to provide the tree and to indicate, find your landing place. And of course, in some ways, we say this is very simple, it's just your own body and mind. And yet, that's a lot. And also, I'd like to use some teaching to really try to get as close to the Buddha's words as we can. So get right to see exactly what he said and also what he didn't say. That some of what he didn't say we've added might be useful, and some might not be useful, some might be one way of looking at it, or one handle on it. Could be good for some people, but let's just get sort of closer to that and try to kind of have faith in that and begin to work from that with this very fundamental approach of our own bodies and minds and hearts, that which we live with day by day. Direct experience. And reflecting on the Dhamma, that which is immediate, directly experienceable, timeless. It's not about particular times and circumstances. It's also not located in a particular place. It's inviting, a sense of come and have a look. Come in. It's an invitation. It's not a command, but it's an invitation. It's something you could find in here. And it's a beckoning. And that beckoning is our call of faith. Hey, something interests me. It's something to be realized in this. This direct, animate experience. Opanayiko, it's pertinent, it's relevant, it leads, has a progressive. Your entry starts to take you along, take you in. Pacitang, it's authentic, means that you directly experience it in yourself, in your own experience. And this is a really crucial point in the transmission, isn't it? The way that all the Buddhas can give us the flags, the signals, the words, but actually the moment of that kindling of realization is always intimate. And we've got to keep going back to that. Yes, sounds good, but what do I actually get? What actually lights up for me? Because if it doesn't light up, there's no point following it. Maybe I'm not ready for it right now, but if it doesn't light up, doesn't ring my bell, it's not for me now. And so there's that sense of putting, trying to find where your faith lights, and you get this quality of arousal or chanda, motivation. Yeah, and there's an effect of that. It's called a sense of gladdening. To be realized, to be fully unfolded, to be realized, to be directly sensed by wisdom, and by those who are discerning. So it's something that can be perused, reflected upon, returned to, scanned, assimilated to realization. And to me it's a tremendously encouraging invitation that's right there in our daily salutations. It's putting it right back where you are, and perhaps using a language that's, well, at one time extremely inviting, even though it's in a foreign language. And it comes apparently from centuries ago. That gives it a kind of really powerful resonance. You mean this happened centuries ago in India, and it's still ringing? What kind of bell is this? Nothing else has lasted that long, has it? How come it touches here now? This is really a powerful signal, a powerful bell, or the Buddha called it the deathless drum, beating. Beating with the same vigour as life itself. Now, as I was saying the other day, the Four Noble Truths expounded, and then the person who received it had this realization experience which doesn't immediately look like it's got anything to do with the Four Noble Truths, or very little. The Buddha's talking about suffering and da-da-da-da-da, and middle path, middle way, and then somehow that lands in this person, and the person, Kondanyo, Yankinchi samudaya dhamma nirodha dhammanti. The arising qualities are the ceasing qualities. That which is the nature of arising is the nature of ceasing. We're in wave. We're in experience of wave, in which nothing is actually fixed. Everything is fluid, but pulsing in this regular pattern of welling up, subsiding, whether that's gross waves, waves of the sea, or the subtle fluctuations of our nervous energies, or the permutations of our thoughts, or emotional currents surging. This pattern is being presented, and somehow that is considered a deep realization, because one thing it says there's nobody there. There's no separate person looking at all this. There's no separate person dealing with this or stuck in this. There's just this. The person has disappeared. And this person, the most common, might imagine, be the most fundamental item of our experience, is part of the phenomena of arising and passing. And as you, look there, that which I experience myself as being is actually thoughts, emotions, sensations, energies, shifts, inclinations, resistances, excitement, passions, worries. It's all part of this whole process. What do we do about it? What is there to be done about it? Open to that. And let that message settle, and begin to remove or release what's not necessary. What's not necessary is holding on to it. There's no need to grasp because it's revealing itself. We stand back with a sense of awe. Oh, it's this. Something opens to that. And this separation of self from experience, which keeps rising up as an experience in this wave reality, me trying to find something, make something, get somewhere, stop something, become something that isn't here. That phenomenon, that piece, encouragement to that, realize, open out of that. That is not needed, or an obstruction, an addition. And yet what is needed is to maintain clarity, attentiveness, presence with that experience of fundamental relativity. And through abiding in this, the various reflexes of grasping, holding on, pushing, dominating, running away, confabulating, scheming, can be experienced as uncomfortable resistances, snags, obstructions to reality. And if we have gone forth with a deep sense of wanting to find truth, we must be on guard for those reflexes and realize these are the obstructions. This realization of changeability, as it's sometimes called, or inconstancy, I call it relativity, anicca. So again, I'm trying to refer to the Pali, because this is as close as we can get to the language the Buddha spoke, and it doesn't, all translations must always, by the fact of being translated, have certain nuances or lack of resonance. Anicca is the opposite of nicca. Nicca is the absolute, the steady, the constant. Anicca, the not absolute. Things are just, colloquially speaking, Ajahn Chah would say, minor, uncertain. Things are not exactly this or not exactly there. They're in flux, they're in change. And yet, there's a strong inclination to pin things down into boxes and numbers and times and locations and entities. And this experience is called upadana, catching hold. Something catches hold. And that's so fundamental, or seemingly fundamental to our reflex patterns, that most of the teaching is just around this simple point. Understanding this grasping, catching hold, meeting it, revealing it, sensing it actually as part of the animate experience that has to be met, understood, and dispassionately allayed. Dispassionate. It's not a savage process. It's done through recognizing there's an awareness of grasping. We can be aware of that. And perhaps be sympathetic to it. What's it about? Security. Get things steady, make things known. It's about comfort. Give me something to hold on to. Comfortable, satisfying, interesting, stimulating. Very fundamental instincts that are so built into the whole experience of being alive that we think, how can you ever stop this? The power of the Dhamma actually says you can get beyond this. because of something more comfortable, more steady, more nicha than all that, where your need to grasp and hold on can be allayed. And with that comes the ending of the struggling, the ending of the fighting, the ending of the resistance, the ending of the bickering, the ending of mine and yours. And wouldn't that be a weight off the mind? To me, this is a very encouraging invitation. Is it worth sacrificing anything for this? And if you're really alight, on fire for this, you say, yes, it's worth sacrificing a lot for. Perhaps, quite a bit. In fact, maybe everything. Because we stand on the edge of death. And this again is part of the background of this whole presentation of what the Buddha was living in and why he went forth. We stand with our feet and our toes just on the edge of death. We keep imagining a future that isn't here. And all around us, people are dropping like flies. And there's some kind of amazing fantasy that sits in the back of the mind. Not now, it won't happen to me. Maybe other people, but not now. And we stand on the edge of it. And that's the kind of the place where a samana lives, a gone forth person lives. I like to say, extend that samana not to just people in robes, but anybody who comes to this place in their practice is going forth in the heart. And you're standing on the edge of death, you stop being so petty, and you stop going into regret, and you stop fantasizing. And that's an excellent cleansing to really appreciate reality as it's happening. This is where the Buddha was teaching from. A cultural background. Death's evident everywhere. And of course, there's birth. Something arising and passing. Same process. Arising and passing. Birth, death. Birth, death. What is the point of all this? Yeah. And maybe some of us have had that sense of like, another day, what is the point of all this? Just going through all this, beginnings and endings, another day, another. Where's all this going? And just enough. This is the position of practice. Or cultivation, realization. As we bear in mind this teaching of the Four Noble Truths, Four Great Truths, the Buddha's first lucid exposition, and right there, the first Noble Truth, things we already recognize, separation from the loved, it's dukkha, association with what we don't like is dukkha, not being able to get what we want is dukkha, and so on, birth and death, dukkha. And then panchupadanakkhandha dukkham. What? Five, panchupada, catching hold, clinging, khandha. And so this is translated as the five aggregates, affected by or subject to catching hold, clinging. And so we start to enter our first piece of language, in this Dhamma teaching presentation, that we have to pause around. What's that? I never heard of this before. So, well, there it is, right at the beginning, laid out. And if the upadana, that clinging is a thing we need to come to terms with, maybe we should look very clearly at the basis of it when it's come right in that first teaching. 5 aggregates. Rupa, shape, form. Vedana, sensitivity. Often translated as feeling, but perhaps something more primary than our emotions, but the very sensitivity, that being affected, where pleasure and pain start occurring. And it's aspects of the vibratory wave experience, quite powerful aspects, because when those come in, the waves start rippling, feeling. Sanya, interpretation, meaning, signifies something. That sense of being affected means something. It means it's happening to me. That's what it means. I've arrived. At least the receptive aspect, the passive aspect, the impacted aspect has arrived. Sanya, this is happening to me. That's an addition, isn't it? What's the me? The me is what sanya generates. The ability to interpret, be affected. What happens then? Sankharas, responses, strategies, reactions, choices, intentions, waves start really moving out. 4th aggregate, sankhara. Karma, action. Action of body, action of mind, action of heart. Something starts inclining, wishing, resisting, wanting. Activations, karma, action starts happening. Right here before we even move a hand, it's already starting. What does it do? It pours out into the sense fields through consciousness, seeing, hearing, tasting, smelling, touching, thinking. All this stuff starts bubbling and consolidating and coagulating, forms. Me, the affected, I, the doer. And then the web has been created in which the me and the I are bonded to that web, struggling in the net of it all, trying to find a way out of it, or make it sense, or tide it up, find a home in it. This, the Buddha said, is dukkha, because there isn't one. There's no home in that. There's no final resting place. We're bemused by the entanglement of this reflex creation. Bemused, fascinated, in love with it. So much so that it's only through understanding the discomfort, the frustration of that one begins to begin something called nibbida, nibbida, losing interest, fading out, not fascinated, disenchanted. Enough of all this. the possibility for a deeper dispassion. So there's no fighting with that, it's just the realizing what's there and the frustration and the short-term benefits and the long-term pointlessness of all that. And that nibbida, that cooling, that dispassion leads to nibbana, the unbinding of the web, the unbinding of the tangle. So all that waveforms can die down, not through hammering them, but just through this sense of this dispassion, detachment. And there's a realization. The Tathagata teaches this. It means there's some way of being present with that when the waves subside. The subsiding of the waves does not mean nihilism, because the Tathagata is able to be there, has been there, presents it, teaches it. Clearly the person is conscious, alive. He's been there. So there is something beyond all that movement. Something that very difficult to wrap a word around because that's more construction. But our faith is encouraged by that. This is not about pessimism. It's release from the net is freedom. And the Buddha said, very simply speaking, paramang sukham, the highest, the most profitable, most further beneficial form of ease. So, as mentioning, in that presentation where Kandanyo gets this point, there's actually no meditation practice mentioned. There's no technology. It's just a straight, there you are. He's listening to it. He's there. So everything else is kind of added as you need it. As you need it. One of those other disciples who were present at that time, Kandanyo, one of the other disciples, Assaji, also had that powerful realization. The release from this sense of me and I am, which is a sense of just perception occurs, but it doesn't have to occur to somebody. There's meaning, interpretation yet. It doesn't have to land and be grasped at into some lasting memory that sticks there with all its pangs and nostalgia. Just that. And it's gone. Just enough. And the I am that does things is just that which is necessary to sustain awakenedness, clarity in this animate condition. This is the Arahant. And Assaji went off wandering, as the Buddha instructed him to, just say, go. So others might see you and be gladdened. And two of them were. Sariputta and Moggallana, who were then two seekers, probably had their various practices already. They might have, done various forms of meditation and so forth. So they were in there. They asked to see this Assaji. Who is this? His faculties are serene and composed. His features are bright. There's something special about this person. What's your teaching? Oh, well, I'm just a newcomer. Gotra is my teacher. I'm just a newcomer to this. I can't explain very much. I can't get my mind around it. Well, just give us a hint. Just a little clue, that would be enough. Says, well, okay. So what he says, Ye Dhamma hetu bhava te sang etung tathagata aho te sancha nirodo te sancha yo nirodo evam vadi samano hoti. This is the means, simply speaking again, all dhammas which have arise from a cause, the Tathagata teaches, has seen those, and is seen where they cease. This is his teaching. Again, what is that? And again, the same realization occurs. Whatever is arising is ceasing in the minds of Sariputta, Moggallana, and they realize, hey, penny drops, stream entry, or that vision of stream entry. There's no person here. There are phenomena that need to be held in awareness. And not just phenomena, but the process of arising and ceasing. And what causes it? The hetu, the root cause. What causes all that to keep welling up? And encouragement, go in there, look into that. What is it that's keeping this conglomeration solidified and seemingly made into a person who is struggling in a world that's separate from them? Yeah. Where there's separation from the loved. Separate from it and you're impervious to it. There's association with the dislike. That happens. The problem of sentiency. Things I really like, but I can't hold them. There's things I don't like, but I can't resist them. Where's that going to end? Where feeling, where sensitivity and perception and responses are subdued, sensitized, relaxed. And right in there is the clue. It's within this. So as we contemplate this process, form, things, there's something, there's an item of various kinds. Something arises out of nothing, a form. Sensitivity, there's some kind of being impacted by that. And then there's the interpretations, meanings, sanya, that's him, that's her, it's Friday, that's time for dinner, whatever. Those interpretations occur. And the motivations and responses start happening. And in the arising of that, the me and the I am, it's called the arising, the welling up of citta. With the arising of what's called nama, the naming of things, the knowing of things, and rupa, things in themselves, that arises, the arising of citta. Citta starts rising up. Something that produces karma, that comes out into activity, heart, mind, responsive system starts going. And this can be called the liberation, the freedom of citta from all grasping is deathless. Another saying of the Buddha. Doesn't mean we don't get rid of it, but just free that from upadana, from catching hold. What supports that? Since this holding on seems so innate to our experience, well, be mindful. Select, stabilize your feeling, perception experience, your form experience, just into a sense of being here. Your body, the animate condition with all its energies, and the heart with its sensitivities. Not into what it produces, but into the root of it. Not into what it does and forms, but into the fundamental potentials of that. It's something you don't actually do, but just happens. So he says, well, okay, for example, when you're standing or sitting, what happens? The energy's moving through the animate condition. There's breathing, there's vibrancy, there's this. And for subduing or calming those waves, why don't you tune into a wave form that's not created through an act of will, it is not an idea, it's not a religious doctrine, it's not something you have to figure out, it's called breathing. It just happens to you. That's part of the given. And within that you experience sensitivities, feeling, and maybe you feel, I am, it's happening to me. But the I am that does things can just be quiet, receptive. And that changes things radically. The karma, the I am as doer, is arrested, subdued. Not to be that which is watchful, be that which is learning from its experience, rather than making something out of it. Be that which is learning from. Turn your activities into inquiry and listening. That's an activity. We do it a lot. Inquiring, listening, sensing, and then soothing, calming, relinquishing what isn't needed. Turn your action, turn your I am doing towards that. This is a skillful karma. Karma that leads to the end of karma. Karma that leads to the scheming, planning, strategizing, bickering, wanting, craving. Just turn it this way. Be for your welfare and benefit. Because then your citta, thus held, thus contained, starts to tune into fortunate resonances that don't throw it out into sights and sounds and touches and thoughts, plans, schemes. Just tunes it into this inner quality of the body, of embodiment, the subtle energy of the body's life, breathing in and out. Same wave occurring, rising, passing, waving, wavering, fluctuating. It always does that. That same reliable signal, which was a signal of realization, is happening to us right now. It's revealed, it's direct, it's immediate. Why don't we pay attention to it? Because these accumulations of feverish activities, of discursive plans, of notions and projects, kind of clogs up that bareness, even though it's still happening within all that. could it be that through tuning into this, some of that ways we think and operate can listen into that message and be more steady, pick up the message of truthfulness, steadiness, and relinquish messages of aggression, pressure, force, domination, superiority, inferiority, conflict. This already would be for our welfare and benefit, would be for our relinquishment of the source of suffering and stress, just right here. And what do you need to do to be with that? To listen up. Wakeful, obviously. Holding the body steady, spine upright. So the breathing can do its job of keeping us freshened. Relaxing the muscles we don't need. So we can also have the relaxed quality. Alert and relaxed at the same time. Alert, breathing in. Relaxed, breathing out. Relaxation that supports alertness, not sluggishness. Relaxation of the unnecessary, of the hasty, of the blurring, the frantic energies, relaxing them. So that not going into sluggishness, but cleaning, so there is alertness. Walking, the simplicity of walking. What happens when we walk? The pressures, the movements of the body, all arising and passing, all moving through, same form. And now instead of the breathing, it's the movements of sense of contact, impressions. As your foot touches the ground, as your body receives that, and then the foot leaving the ground, subsiding, end of that. Space, contact, firming up, releasing, space. And we notice also that space, which end of the breath, space, inhalation, end of the inhalation, openness, end of the exhalation, space, end of the inhalation, openness. Walking, instead of walking to get somewhere, walking in order to experience that same pattern. A sense of pressure of the body on the touching the ground, the release of that pressure as the leg leaves the ground, openness, and then firming up again. This turning these waves into rhythm, so that the citta is soothed, calmed, eased. Its frantic congestions begin to dissolve. Simplicity, we call cultivation, or a base for cultivation. Because even within that very base, which in some ways seems so strikingly obvious, there is needed faith, that which reminds us, there needs to be the gladdening of the heart, even a gladdening that you feel in your body when it feels fresh and bright. Pamoja, turning into piti, uplifted state. And these arising factors associated with awakening start to form. When there is gladness, there is relaxing, there is happiness, there is steadiness, there is samadhi. This is the rising tide of the Dhamma that comes in as we relinquish then one's faith is confirmed, because it's saying, yes, if you do this rather difficult business of sacrificing, giving up, putting aside one's choices, one's schemes, one's future, even one's sense of identity of what I want and don't want, these are not small things to relinquish, but the payoff is out of this world. You'll start to find yourself rising through without willpower, just feeling gladdened. And this is the beauty of our cultivation. The Buddha, pragmatists, say we are definitely attracted to ease and happiness. This is the highest, this way. Yeah? When that ease and happiness arises, not because we've schemed at something, grabbed something and formed something and bought something and made something, it arises because we've actually relinquished those tendencies. This is what else can happen but a sense of awe and faith that we're in something bigger than me, and yet intimate. The whole domination paradigm of the self is overthrown because it's seen as fundamentally lesser than our potential, as that which inhibits our potential, rather than has to be perfected in order to get what I want. This is a whole system is limiting the potential of something vaster that we can feel immensely comforted and steadied within. So this is our opening movements, our opening settling in. I shouldn't imagine anybody's going to feel themselves totally settled on day one, certainly not the first hour. Things run around, don't they? But rather than kind of take issue with them, project them onto yourself, I am this way, or they do this to me, or the system, just yeah, but feel those energies of nervousness, anxiety, bit of irritation, ill will, restlessness, and where does all this come from? The source of it. In there somewhere there's a struggling being. Can that sense of the struggling being, the citta, the struggling that forms myself, could that be just something we listen to and gently, lovingly hold carefully and say, well, just yes, but it doesn't stop you breathing, does it? Yes, but you can breathe, and you can move and walk. You can experience this living experience, and you can reflect on santitiko akaliko, ehipassiko. You can reflect, and in those you'll find benefits that are worth dwelling upon. Will actually transform the whole way we operate for our welfare and for the welfare of others. The relinquishment of grasping is the big project for our welfare, for the welfare of the entire world. And there's an honour in feeling one could be part of this enormous project to release the grip that crushes everything, fragments everything. So let's take some time for our direct practice.